tell you, the world has been going through it for the past couple of years. Truly, truly. But a lot of us, we're adults. So we can make certain decisions for ourselves. If we need a break, we can make a choice. We can run out of the house. Some of us can take a resort trip, get ourselves a masseuse, a massage. You know, do what we need to do. But you see, those kids are going through it. And they don't even understand half the time mentally what they're going through. You know what I mean? Nor do we. So we got to talk to people about this kind of stuff. And I got one of the children's advocate, Diahann.
It's Diahann.
Diahann. Oh, it's just spelled different.
Yes, that's right.
I like that. Diahann. Diahann. All right. Child Helpline. She's a psychologist. She works with the OCA. What exactly is the OCA?
All right. So just to correct you, Nikki Z, first of all, great to see you.
Hi.
I've always heard you, but never seen you. So it's good to see you. But just to let you know, I'm definitely not a psychologist. I have great respect for psychologists, but I'm not one. I'm, in fact, an attorney at law. And I'm the children's advocate from Jamaica. Yes. So being...
No, I was going to say, as an attorney at law, how did you get into child advocacy?
Okay, so the Office of the Children's Advocate is really a commission of the Jamaican Parliament, which really provides legal representation and protection for all children in Jamaica to ensure that their rights are upheld, that their rights are respected, and where there are breaches, we actually institute proceedings in the courts to recover damages or money on behalf of children who have had their rights violated.
I'm very curious about that. I mean, as a child, you often don't think you do have rights. I mean, if you feel that you've been treated unjustly, sometimes you have other adults that will just tell you, well, you shouldn't have acted bad, even though in your mind, maybe it wasn't. How does child's rights even work, especially if your rights are being violated by your parents or your caretaker?
Right. So this is how it was traditionally in Jamaica, and in fact in most of the Caribbean and the world.
Yeah.
And so then came this watershed era where we had the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Yeah.
And Jamaica, very interestingly, was the very first Caribbean nation to sign and ratify that convention, which had us recognizing that we in Jamaica were going to be leading by example. And we were now saying that children in Jamaica, whether they are born here or not, but once they're under 18, they have certain fundamental rights which ought not to be violated. And so that led to the creation and establishment of a special commission of parliament that has that responsibility to lead in the education as to what children's rights are, to advise children and to empower them with knowledge about what these rights are and what steps need to be taken if these rights are violated. And so we have a public education and special projects unit that deals with this education through school tours. Now, since COVID and we had less schools in session, we started an OCA, Office of the Children's Advocate, do-road series, which goes into the communities to educate not just children, but those who care for them. So parents, guardians, and people in the community that we exist. And that there are certain channels through which help can be provided to these children if there are any situations of concern.
Yeah, absolutely. The parents definitely have to be a target. And also, you know, for the young people listening, I don't want you to start getting excited and think that maybe you don't like how strict your parents are and think you can just run to OCA. We're talking about, you know, serious situations of like maybe abuse or, you know, money mismanagement from inheritances and things like that are situations that can definitely happen. But I also want to know, what is it that you do for a lot of the adults? Because I do think the big part of the problem comes from parenting. You know, I mean, a lot of parents don't really understand some of the things that they do are leading to their kids, you know, maybe acting certain ways or feeling mentally certain ways, depressed, angry, what have you. So how do we really target the adults and let them know that? Because, you know, people feelings are sensitive.
Yes. All right. So I'm very happy that you asked that question because you really have hit the nail on the head. because every child belongs to a context.
Yeah.
Children were not just, brought here and then, expect to
No.
figure it out magic. And so we recognize that parents have to be a very critical part of that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And so parent education, not in terms of a schoolroom type of thing, but certainly in terms of sensitization about how their kind of approach to parenting can impact their children, is something that we focus on. And very importantly as well is that we partner very heavily with the National Parenting Support Commission.
Yeah.
Because believe it or not, we have a commission in Jamaica that deals with just that, exclusively providing support to parents who have all sorts of challenges, whether in or outside of the education system, whether within the community in terms of their struggling with just, child rearing.
Right.
And so there's very heavy partnership. And very interestingly as well, the family court also has a link to parenting seminars and so on, to help parents who may be saying, look, I'm at my wit's end.
Yeah.
I am having a child who is acting out and I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Another way, Nikki, that I'd like to bring in, that the OCA does this kind of holistic support to family and supporting families that really have children in them, is we recognize with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, there was going to be a very changed dynamic in how parenting and in how children would parent and the issues that they're going to face.
And are facing.
So, exactly. And this will continue for a long time because you strike me as a very conscious person. And so I know you get it when we say that COVID-19 has impacted now, but the impact of it will be felt for many years to come.
100%.
Absolutely. And so if we don't have interventions now that are meaningful and timely and effective, the lingering legacy of the consequences of COVID-19 are going to be that much more impactful on children.
Yeah, and it's hard. It's hard when we say these things because I think about it. And, I wasn't the perfect parent. I mean, because, when you think about what blueprint you had in parenting, a lot of us came from the same type of homes and we didn't really see what we were being taught or how we were being dealt with. We just thought that's just the way things are. So a lot of people I feel now are trying to break that cycle, but they don't really know everything to look for that's wrong. I just wanted you, before we go too far, to give people who are listening right now just a few stereotypes of Caribbean parenting that really doesn't help, and maybe we should take a second look at how we do that.
Okay. So first of all, the Caribbean parent, to include Jamaicans,
Yeah.
Most persons traditionally believe that strong parenting is the way to go. And you notice I did a little action when I said strong. And that's because many people identify strong parenting with parenting that involves some physical aggression or physical means of correcting a behavior or voice aggression, meaning that, you know, when we're at our wit's end or we think that our child isn't getting what we're saying, we feel they'll get it better if we shout it. So we have to get that out to them. Yeah. And if they don't respond to the shouting, then we feel that the next step is to give them a good lick. Right. Mm-hmm. And so that's the traditional, if I'm going to be very stereotypical, not saying that you don't have exceptions.
Yeah,
you know?
That's why I use the word stereotype. We understand, you know.
Yeah. So basically, that's how we tend to view strong parenting, you know, spare the rod and spoil the child. And, you know, the Bible authorizes it and so on and so forth.
Right.
Fast forward to all the work that has been done in the field in terms of looking at how children develop, looking at the emotional side of how children connect with parents, and looking at strategies that actually work. And very interestingly, perhaps about a month ago, I was reading an article and they said, you know, sometimes when you shout at a child, the child hears the noise, but your message gets lost.
They get desensitized because they now tune out the aggressiveness. They don't want a part of the aggressiveness. So the message, and that goes with adults too, even in dating relationships. It's the same theory. It works across the board.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I think, you know, there's an awakening of the consciousness that says, how can we recognize, first of all, that because somebody is short
Yeah.
or young or, not yet an adult,
Yeah.
that they don't have a brain and they don't have feelings.
Right.
And if we were to role play sometimes how we communicate with children on an adult,
Yes.
you'd be surprised at how that adult would receive it. I've often asked persons the question, so when your child is growing up, if they do something that you consider wrong, the first thing you do is you slap them because this is how you're going to correct them.
No, that's slave
But then,
mentality.
what makes you stop doing that
Yeah.
when they get to a certain stage? And what makes you, as an adult, when another adult annoys you in a board meeting or in the recording studio
Yep.
or at the radio station, when an adult really ticks you off, why don't you just automatically slap that person? It's because it's antisocial and not acceptable.
Exactly.
And that there's another way to get your point across.
Exactly.
So we now need to shift that kind of approach, I think, to people who are looking on, and who are hoping that the adult who they love and who they respect will be nurturing in the way that they seek to correct them.
Yeah, and another big thing that needs to be corrected, especially in these COVID times where people have to learn at home on the computer, that has become difficult for a lot of children because not everybody learns the same. I know if you told me that my schooling had to be done the way it's done now, I'm not sure I'd survive it because I'm a very hands-on person. Yeah, so we have a lot of adults who don't really sit back and think about that, and they will just start calling their kids things like, why you going like it's a dunce, or, oh, yeah, going like a dummy, or stuff like that. And I don't think that a lot of them, because I've literally seen this, like I've seen it even in a grocery store, people talking to their kids like that, and it freaks me out. Like, I'm borderline ready to turn around and go, do you want me to talk to you like that? Like if you brought the wrong change or you answered a question wrong, do you want me to turn around and say, why are you going on like you a dunce? Why are you acting stupid? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, that's something that we would not do or not think of doing if we're socially responsible and conforming to what society expects us to.
Yes.
You're right. Why is it okay for you to do that to somebody who
or
is
call your kid fat, or you yam too much, you look too fat, you're too black.
Yeah.
Like, these are things that I see adults doing with their kids, and I don't think they realize that also borders on the line of abuse. That is actually mental abuse, and it will have severe effects on your child as they grow up.
Absolutely. And this is something that traditionally the OCA has seen it because, as I said, we deal with situations when things go wrong for children in many cases. And, this concern really was amplified with the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, where children were basically stuck at home, not going to school, not having access to their friends and extracurricular.
Not communication skills,
Exactly. And so we started saying, if children are stuck in unfavorable situations at home or their communities, how do they get the help that they need?
They don't.
So we actually put a little solution on the table, which I want to plug very quickly before time runs. And we have actually launched through partnership, that's the Office of the Children's Advocate, the Private Sector Organization of Jamaica, and UNICEF Country Office in Jamaica.
Yeah.
We collaborated and we actually launched last May a helpline for children known as Safe Spot. And Safe Spot is operated by the Office of the Children's Advocate 24 hours per day, 7 days per week. And what it does is it gives children immediate access to a counselor to talk about anything at all that's bothering them.
Amazing.
And I can tell you, since our launch on the 20th of May last year, that's 2021, we have received approximately 2,000 contacts.
Can you imagine?
From children calling about a range of activities.
Situations.
It could be that they are feeling embarrassed because of a situation that's happening at home. It could be that they are feeling suicidal because there's an issue that's unresolved.
It could be they're being abused.
Exactly. It could be that they're having problems with their parents. It could be that, a lot of them called us to say they're having stress in relation to online learning
Right.
and
Yeah,
examinations
I
coming
couldn't do
and
that.
not feeling like they're prepared and so on.
Bless
And
them.
so that solution is there for children to reach out. And so I want to encourage that they do so. And
Okay.
if given the opportunity, I can share with you the ways through which they can reach us
That's what I was gonna
because
ask
it's
you
free.
next. How
Yeah,
can they reach you now? Just to repeat for all my young people out there, they are there to help you for whatever ails you. You know what I mean? So if it's a situation at home and you don't have anybody to talk to, maybe you're scared to talk to somebody near, you can call these people, contact them with the info she's about to give you. If you're feeling stressed out about online learning and maybe need somebody to help guide you a little extra outside of what is afforded to you from your school, you can call them for that. If you just really want to scream and have no one to scream at about what's happening in your life, you can call
yeah.
them for that. So whatever is going on in your life, and if they're calling about an abusive home, just before you tell me the information of how to reach you, how safe are they? Because that's a big factor. People are afraid. They're like, I'm going to call them, then they're going to call my parents because they want to check on what's happening and let my parents know, and then I'm just going to get hammered after. It's a fair. I can only imagine. So just to make them, if we have one of those kids listening, how does it
Right.
work?
Okay. So first of all, we understand and respect the sensitivity of information that is provided to us. And so confidentiality is at the forefront of how we treat with matters.
Mm-hmm.
And we also have what is called a child safeguarding policy, where our primary responsibility is to ensure that the situation is handled with the child's best interest at heart.
Okay.
And so we've had cases, even outside of Safe Spot, but looking at, what we do every day with the Office of the Children's Advocate. And we've had cases where we had a young lady who was being sexually violated for a period of months. And she wanted to disclose that to her parents. And she didn't know how to because she had one of those parents that I think people would say,
They would turn around and say something like, well, why you go over
"You're
there
wrong,"
and all of, they'll be judgmental instead of, yeah,
exactly, or
the
beat her to a
worst.
point and she's
Yup.
become,
The
be seen
victim
as the
becomes
one
the
who caused
demon.
this on herself and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we did is that we were able to provide that child with the help, with the counseling support to get her in a position where she had to understand that if we're going to take this forward, beyond the immediate, kind of hand holding and so on, and hold her perpetrator accountable,
Yeah.
at some stage we needed to get the parents involved. But because of her concern and her fear, we said, look, we understand what you're telling us about your parents. So we're going to have what is called a therapeutic circle
Mm-hmm.
where we'll come in with you and we will be there to assist with how the news is shared with your parents. And also, we will assign someone to stay in contact with all of you to ensure that your parents, one, don't fly off the handle,
Mm-hmm.
two, don't decide that they're going to, you know, do what to you know, to you know, to you till you know where,
Yeah.
and manage the situation in a way that tempers were contained and there was a process that was brought to that entire set of
So you go the
circumstances
extra mile.
that
All right,
we're
we're
able
running
to.
out of time and I don't want to lose you before you send the information of how to contact you.
Okay, all right. So there are various ways. The first one, we have a toll-free line where kids need no credit, whether calling from Digicel or Flow, and that number is 1-888-SAFE-SPOT, which is really 1-888-723-3776. For those kids that don't want to talk but prefer to send a WhatsApp, we will give you the support via WhatsApp, and that WhatsApp number is 876 439 5199. They can also send us a DM on either Instagram or Snapchat, and our handle on those platforms is at SafeSpotJA. So hit us up any way you feel comfortable, and we will provide the support through those means.
All right, absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us. The head of OCA, yeah, the Children's Advocate of Jamaica, one of them, Diahann Gordon. Thank you so much, Diahann Gordon Harrison.